This meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, guys. This is Dr. Karla and Coach Lucas, and we are going to talk about kids and teens nutrition today because we train a lot of kids and teens, and a huge component of what training is actually the fuel that they put in their body. And so we are wanting to kind of stress some points that we've seen and we found and ways that you can help out your kids and your teens. Welcome. Give me one sec here. All right. So as some of you and most of you know, we are a medical fitness facility. So I actually do a sports physical with every single person that comes through our doors. And in that, I ask what people eat. And because it is very important, you can't put bad fuel in and expect great results. And some trends that I see with our youth, and this summer we have 4th through 12th graders, is protein. They do not have enough protein, and they definitely aren't having protein in the beginning of their day. Usually, and I'm a parent too, I get it, like usually they're eating cereal or toast or some sort of high carb item, which they need carbs too, don't get me wrong, but we are missing our protein in our morning. And we need to have a little discussion about that. So what points on protein would you like to chime in with?
I think talking about why protein is important, what it does for your body, is probably the most important. Protein is a major player in building strong bones, building muscle, maintaining muscle, and then creating more muscle and repairing muscle. It also is really important for building and maintaining cartilage, and also great for your cells, great for your skin, and regulating body fat.
Exactly. I also think one thing that I do discuss with a lot of our kids, and particularly our teenage boys, they are all very wanting and willing to get stronger, which means improving muscle mass. And how we do that is actually when we do weightlifting and training, we actually break down muscle in order to build it back up. That's how you build muscle. And in order to do that, you need not only enough protein to recover, but also then build muscle on top of that. So if they're involved in some sort of high intensity sport or training, it's really important. And for those of you who might have kids who are endurance athletes, guess what? They actually need more, because all the pounding and all that repetition is actually breaking down more muscle than your strength or your power kids. And that's a big kind of common mistake, like, oh, well, my kid's just in cross country and track. Well, guess what? They actually probably need more. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a big thing I see with them. Do you want to talk about portions at
all? So when it comes to probably most kids or teens, I don't think that there's like a specific portion that everyone needs to hit. I think generally, if you can look at a plate, like your circle plate, and if you can fill at least a quarter of your plate with protein, that you'll be sitting in a pretty good spot. That'll be pretty good for most like body sizes. Otherwise, another way to just measure protein, and it's very easy for kids because their hands will continue to grow with them, is if you look at your hand, you look at the palm, this is how much protein everyone could consider as a serving. 1 palm is a serving. My hands don't grow anymore, so this is how much my protein is going to do for the rest of my life. But a 13-year-old, they are still growing, so their hands will continue to get bigger. Their serving sizes will continue to get bigger. So this is one way to measure for the rest of your life, basically.
So for parents, some quick and easy ways to do this, especially if your kids don't know how to cook yet. Eggs are a great source of protein. I always like to say, what kind of leftover protein did you have the night before? Like, do you know how to use a microwave for 30 seconds? Something you could eat cold. And so I would just try and get something in with their carbohydrate for breakfast. Another question I have a lot is, well, can my kid just have a protein shake? So asterisks, yes. However, we both would really like everybody to eat real food first and then supplement around it. So if you could have protein with your meal, and if your kid is really short on protein, maybe they grab a protein shake, like maybe with some mixed berries and some other things if they're a picky eater. Throw some spinach in there too. We'll talk about vegetables in a moment, but maybe that's what they have after their workout or after their basketball camp or something like that to help get them an extra bit in the body. But just having 3 protein shakes a day, this goes for kids and adults. Let's try and eat real food first.
Yeah.
Anything else on protein?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know any vegetables.
Another big trend, and this is tough for kids, is vegetables. And let me just add, this is also very difficult for adults. And something that's in our country, it's like we have breakfast foods, we have lunch foods, we have dinner foods, and it's kind of this marketed thing to us. But you go to the rest of the world and they have salad for breakfast. They have like ground beef for breakfast. And so I think we need to get out of the box a little bit about what we can have for breakfast or what we can have for lunch. But it's really more about what kind of fuel can we have for our body throughout the day that's good for us. And so parents, first and foremost, you're going to have to eat the vegetables too. You can't expect your kids to do something that you refuse to do. So you have to be their model and you have to be their leader. And as coaches, like we are talking about these kind of things every day. Like I asked our 7th through our 12th graders the other day what they had for breakfast, and half of them had protein. And we discussed what the others could do to start getting that in. But first and foremost, I think you're going to have to be that like model for your kids. What else? Do you have anything else on that?
Vegetables.
Yeah.
I think just to add on it, if we're going along with like protein and vegetables being probably the 2 most important, so to say, some of those vegetables that are higher in protein are like peas, corn, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, asparagus, kale, things like that. So I mean, you could hit two birds with one stone. It's 1 cup of kale is not going to pack as much as a chicken breast, but I mean, every bit counts. So if you're going to eat, if eating a whole chicken breast is hard for a kid, give them some vegetables. They can have it together and maybe hit that portion, or just at least get some in for their day.
Yeah. For parents with really picky kids, I cannot take credit for this. This is Oprah Winfrey. But if they will have a shake, if you take frozen broccoli and you blend that and use that as the ice in your shake, the flavor doesn't come out for about 20 minutes. So if you make your kid a small shake with a cup of broccoli as your ice, like frozen broccoli with some other things, you're good. But after the 20-minute mark, they can taste it. So if you have a really tricky time with your kids, you can sort of mix those things in. And for those of you who might be watching who have like younger kids, the trick I use is my child actually has a hard time with protein. So we put that on his plate first. So he eats that. And then we put vegetables and then we put fruit or the carb, because if he eats it in that order, he's just hungry and he wants food. So far that's been working. Not going to say that's going to work his entire life, but a little trick when they're really little. It doesn't really work with teenagers like that though. Anything else on vegetables, or should I proceed? Okay.
Yeah.
The next point that I kind of came to see is that a lot of our kids are eating highly processed carbs, and particularly in the AM. And so these are things like Pop-Tarts or Eggos or cereal or something like that, versus something that might be like more of like a like a whole grain, or it might be grown from the ground, like fruit. And so, or like sugary yogurt. And so one thing we need to look out for in these processed carbs is so many of them contain added sugar. And a lot of kids are leaving the house every single day with more grams of added sugar than any adult should have in their entire day. And so we have to take a look at like how much sugar is, or the type of carbohydrate that's in milk, if you're using milk. And then if you use like Fruit Loops, like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of sugar in that. And so we don't need to be like hyper, making these kids super hyper off sugar. But as a parent, that is going to take a lot of diligent effort. So if you have kids that will help out, that might mean you got to meal prep your breakfast for the entire week, because usually it's the quick and easy things that are the processed carbs that are just super easy for your kids to do. So that time and effort is probably going to have to come in like on a Sunday night or whenever you're home during the week to plan ahead for the entire week.
I was actually, so you know when we were talking about, sorry.
You're good. We asked to mute. There we go. If you have questions though, just let us know. Lucas, anything on those?
Yeah, I think the key word is processed. We don't hate carbs. We actually love carbs, but the processed carbs are the bad ones. So your processed carb is going to be in the middle of the store. If you are in the produce aisle or even like the frozen fruit aisle, those are the fresh carbs, I guess I could say.
Yep. I think the other thing too, if you're going in the produce aisle or even the frozen fruit, those carbs contain fiber, and fiber usually moves it through your body differently. Typically not all the time, but you usually don't spike your blood sugar quite as high if you're having like a whole fruit versus a processed fruit juice. A cup of orange juice is going to raise your blood sugar a lot more than a cup of oranges, because that whole food and that fiber component is mixed with that orange. And so if your kids ask for orange juice, say, here's an orange. So same great taste, they just have to do a little work to get it open. And so with processed carbs, as much as you can eliminate and use those fresh ones, I would highly recommend that. On to the next topic, this conversation that I've had with a lot of kids and parents, and kids don't like this answer, and I've had to be the bearer of bad news. But kids, and honestly a lot of adults, they think that everything they eat has to taste really good, but that's a lie. Not everything you eat has to taste really good if you want to fuel your body properly. And everybody's taste buds are different, and your taste buds actually change as you grow. And guess what? I am a grown adult and I don't like vegetables. I don't really like most of them, but I eat them anyway, and I eat them a lot. I have a whole container of them to eat today. But the news is that a lot of those foods that you might not gravitate towards, those are the ones that are going to have all of your nutrients and minerals and vitamins that you actually really need to make your body work at the highest level, even though they might not taste as good as a Snickers bar or whatever you might gravitate towards. So unfortunately, food doesn't have to taste super good. It just has to fuel your body in the right way, and you be able to eat it decently.
I don't have anything on that.
And you know, as kids grow, I think they start to understand maybe how different nutrients affect their body and affect their performance. But for the most part, parents, this is sort of on you. And so knowing what they need to put in their body and at least having it available for them at your house, that's sort of your job. You can't make them eat it, but you can put the right things on your shelves in your fridge at home, so that when they do get hungry, they're going to grab that thing and not the things that you don't want them to grab. If you don't want them to have a lot of sodas and a lot of sugary things, well, the bad news is you're going to have to keep it out of the house. Like if you have soda, like make it be something that you do when you go out to eat, or it's a treat. It's not something that you do all the time at home. And that kind of leads me to the next point, is that parents often say to me that their kids do so much like mindless snacking in the summer. So a couple of tricks, depending upon the age of your child. A couple of things, the parents of elementary school kids and teens have told me this, but they will make them a snack basket, and that's all they get for the entire day. Like they have to eat that. That could contain a banana, some carrots, maybe a granola bar, and some sort of other fruit snack or whatever. But that could be that quota of what they can have. And the other thing is our brains are wired to eat the sugary things, to eat the fatty things, to eat the salty things, and they manufacture food, processed foods, to make us want more and more and more. And so, especially if you have a kid who's bored in the summer because they're home, that mindless snacking is going to go way up. So you're just going to have to take those foods out of your house. Unfortunately, your child, as much as you want them to, they aren't going to have that governor on them, and they might not even realize they're eating what they're eating.
Mm-hmm. Most people have a chip cupboard, and I mean it'll benefit your child because they're the ones eating the chips the most, but if you just clear the chip cupboard, it will benefit everyone. Yeah, clear the chip cupboard and start getting carbs you have to keep in the fridge. Start replacing your chips with a handful of blueberries or a banana or an apple or an orange or two. Or I think Karla mentioned it, like make it a task to get to. It only happens at restaurants, or you have to go to the gas station and get it. Maybe your kid's too young, they don't have to drive. You have to go and get it. Say, hey, you have to come with me if we're gonna go get it. Most kids don't want to ride around with parents anymore. Or even like, I know like some parents, they have a beer fridge in the garage. You have to go out of your house to the garage to get your beer. Like it's a task. You have to think about doing something to get what you want, and that alone is already a thing in the way, so you won't do it.
There's actually a study I read about mindless eating, and they took a regular like workplace where people sit down, and they put peanut M&Ms, which by the way, it's salty and it's sweet, and so that's a concoction for basically a really, really bad news. They're literally meant to be super addictive. Not too sweet, not too salty, just a little bit of both. But they would put a bowl on some people's desk, and then they put that same bowl in a drawer from those people, and then they put another like bowl in the community, like coffee room, like whatever room everybody goes to. They actually found that people ate 70% less if they actually just had to open the drawer. And it was even more if they had to get up and walk to that item. And so that's how much mindless eating happens. If it's just there, you'll just grab it and you don't even realize it's happening. So by giving barriers to some of those things, most of the time they're probably not going to want to go grab for it because it's like, it's just too hard. So that happens with kids and adults. And so just know that they don't have the capability to probably recognize that that's happening, because most adults don't either, about that aspect of it. Anything else on the junk food snacking?
Yeah. So I actually came up with a list of maybe the better snacks to have around your house and things that are just easy to get at a gas station. And I broke them down into like protein, carbs, and fats. That just being like the higher nutrient, so to say. So some proteins that could be, quick and easy as a snack, like a low sugar, high protein yogurt. They make those now where it's 0 sugar. There's like 15 grams of protein in one little like single serving. Hard-boiled eggs, edamame, and jerky. Those are all very high in protein. Some of them even have a good source of carbs in them as well. Other snacks that are maybe more on the carb side, fresh fruit, like a fruit salad that's in a, it's like a little plastic container that you see in the produce section, not fruit salad that's like in a can. Canned fruit salad is just doused in sugar to preserve it. Dried fruit and whole grain bread is better than the white bread. So any of those would be good for carb, fats, mixed nuts, hummus, peanut butter, sunflower seeds, and single serving packs of guacamole. All those things can be easily taken with you or picked up at a gas station, even if you're traveling.
Awesome.
And cheese sticks.
Cheese sticks. Unless your kid's like me, then you might want to just leave one out during the day because I would eat the whole thing. Here's another thing that was super upsetting to some of the kids that I talked to this year. And I think it might have even been an education for some adults who never got a lot of nutrition. Kids love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Okay, throw it on some whole wheat bread. But here's a little secret. Peanut butter is considered a fat, not a protein. Although it contains some protein, it is mostly a fat. So for some of the kids I talked to, I said, okay, if you're going to make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, grab a couple slices of turkey or grab something else with a little bit of protein. And no, you don't have to put the turkey on the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You can have it separately, but just know that, by putting a layer of peanut butter, we're not quite to the protein yet at which you probably need per meal. So peanut butter is a fat.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else on those things?
Mm-mm.
All right. Did you want to talk mostly about the competition stuff?
Before we go there, I think talking a few more strategies on how to get kids or teens to try new things. So, okay. I shouldn't say anything more.
I know an individual.
Where it's very getting a kid to try new foods, especially vegetables, can be a very stressful situation. You can get a lot of pushback. There can be a lot of tantrums at dinner, and then dinner time can be an entire fiasco for the whole family. Okay. There are different ways to try and include the kids in their decisions about what they're going to eat. Something I have done with a couple teens is we have these PDFs here where it'll talk about the best protein, the okay protein, and like the definitely eat less of this protein. And I've given these PDFs to parents and kids to have them circle like what ones do they like, which ones do they do not like, and which ones are they willing to try. And then I gave it to the parents and said, this is what your kid said that they would do. So then the parent was able to try new things with them, buy new groceries, try new recipes with the items that they said that they would do. So that the child consciously agreed on trying something new. So there is less pushback then. We do have these PDFs here for carbs, fats, proteins, and vegetables. So if you are interested, just email EHP and we can get them to you if you want to try that with your child. Another one would be asking them what they want on the grocery list, but keeping it within your realm. Like Karla said, you are in control. So maybe like these are the options. What do you want? Maybe the options isn't chips. Maybe the options is we're going to pick up some fruit. We're going to pick up some vegetables. Which one of these do you want? So that at least they get to pick the one. And again, there won't be any pushback because they chose. They already agreed to it. Another way would be, this would probably be for older kids and teens. Hand them a recipe book and ask them to pick one. So then again, they make the agreement that they chose that recipe, so they're willing to try it. And then going back to just like dinner time possibly being a hard situation because there's a lot of pressure to try new foods, maybe focus on a wide range of healthy eating throughout the week, and then letting the kid have some wins here and there, so that there's not pressure to eat healthy at every single meal.
Start small and
Yeah.
chip your way through that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really like that about being able to have the child have a say. Even you might even give them a list of 10 vegetables and say, okay, basically these would be parents, by the way, this would be anything that you're willing to purchase, and say, which ones of these would you try this week? And so if they circle 3, then at least they're already on your kind of good list. And then you kind of come to that agreement. We all like choices in life, even if it's multiple choice.
Mhm.
Sometimes we all do better if we're like, okay, there's 4 items, which one would you like? And so we've already narrowed down all these options, especially if it's like a very anxiety provoking task for them to try new foods. Sometimes narrowing that list can be easier too. Cool. I think the last thing we'll cover is we always get questions about what should my kid be eating during these sporting events, these tournaments, these like all day type of things.
Mhm.
So let me first say that I was an athlete and I have been at many tournaments, and now I'm a coach and I go to these high school things. And please don't rely on concession stands to get you through tournament days. It's
Chips and nacho cheese.
oh boy. If you want your child to perform well and then be able to sleep at night. So this is something we work with parents too on, is be the parent that packs the cooler.
Yes.
Be the parent that packs the cooler with lots of different things. Now I'll say like baseball is going to be a little bit different than like basketball, because basketball is that higher intensity sport. So if you have 3 baseball games in a day, your child can eat pretty much like they would eat at home. You can have your proteins, your carbs, and your fats in between each meal.
Mhm.
If you have 3 basketball games, and you play like one at 10 a.m. and one at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. and then 3 p.m., you're going to have lunch in there somewhere. But one thing to know as a parent is they're probably not going to be able to digest that protein quite as well as if they weren't moving their bodies. So if we're doing something that's high intensity, our body goes into this fight or flight. It's our sympathetic nervous system, and that does not digest food well. Our parasympathetic, when we're like calm and relaxed, that digests our food. So protein is harder to digest and it takes longer. So typically then those are the days like to have more of the carbs, maybe a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat. I'm not saying highly processed carbs, chips, nacho cheese, but think of our healthy list as far as like, okay, grab some fruit, maybe some rice, like maybe a little bit of chicken or something, but the protein doesn't have to be as big on those high intensity like tournament days.
Yeah, keep it like things that are like easily digestible. So like a protein shake with plenty of liquid. You should be able to drink it just as smooth as water. Again, like the low sugar, high protein yogurt is light. Eggs are light. What else did they say was light?
Steak is not light for all the teens that love steak. Sorry, parents, you guys have some expensive kids.
Yeah. Keep it light, because I mean, if you think about a basketball game, if you eat a big meal and then have to go run on the court, it's just a full stomach ache. So.
And I think another important thing is for those of you who we coach your kids, we throughout the summer are actually going to be talking about nutrition. And also we know that you might be saying a lot of the same exact things that we say to your kids, but kids don't think their parents know anything. And they might look up to their coaches slightly differently than they look up to their parents. And we understand that. And so we want to help your kids be that like healthier version of themselves. So at least exposing them to that conversation about what's healthy, how do we fuel your body? It's not about, starving yourself. It's about being healthy and performing well and eating to fuel your body. That's the number one thing, because if you don't fuel your body properly, the outcome's not going to be the best. Awesome. If you guys that are on have any questions, just ask us or throw them in the chat. But for any of you who are watching this in a delayed format, feel free to email ehpperformance@gmail.com if you have any other questions on nutrition, or if you want your child to work with one of our coaches on nutrition, we do that as well. And so, yeah, it's a huge part of life, and we just want to let more people know how to find ways to eat better. Any questions, guys?
Nope, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, signing off.